show others love. I mean, they may want to, but they don't know how to. So maybe with the right training, since they want to, just like in the Big Bang Theory, the Sheldon character, he sees somebody hurting, and he says, "Would you like a hot beverage?" He wants to do the right thing. He doesn't know the right thing. So in that way, people should be aware that perhaps maybe they could be trained in that. They want to do the right thing, but they don't know how.
So you're talking about Aspie people versus some people who have a different type of autism where they are not as empathetic.
Right. There may be people who aren't empathetic at all. They only care about themselves, and it may be because they're too simple or whatever. And so, but the point is that Simon Baron-Cohen in the book The Science of Evil explains that like true autistic people are evil by this definition, that they don't have empathy for others. And there are actually 3 different types of empathy. There's the cognitive, there's the emotional, and then there's the third one, which is the being able to do the right thing for that person. So there may be people who really in some ways can see people hurting, whatever, and they feel that they're empaths or empathetic, and they may want to do the right thing, but they don't know how to do the right thing. And it's part of it is because a lot of people on the spectrum have not had the privilege of having any kind of relationships and real friends, and that people aren't friendly to them. And in fact, that's as a result of, if you don't know how to show that you love somebody, and you don't know how, the people who do reach out to you get tired of, like, see, this person doesn't care about me. I've reached out to the person, and I've reached out, and they don't seem to care anything about me. I mean, so they lose time after time potential friends, and they keep and then people. And so all these people that could have been their friends aren't their friends because they don't seem to care. So the question is, can somebody practice, like, hey, asking about the person? And maybe that person could eventually have an appreciation for that person. If they ask questions to that person, hey, like, how are you doing today? Let me check in with you. And so there are people that we know who people like qualities of them, but they never ask others how they're doing and stuff. And so for that reason, it's difficult to imagine having a primary relationship with somebody on the spectrum because they tend to not do that. Now, I do appreciate the fact that you see that I have learned to reach out and find how you're doing. I'm not always necessarily as timely as I need to be. Also, Aspie people tend to not only not know the right thing to do, but they're not always as quick to recognize somebody that's we're not as good at reading facial expressions or things, so it's difficult to necessarily know if somebody is hurting or needs to be reached out to. So there are those challenges. So I'm hoping with our relationship that you can overlook those shortcomings and see that eventually I reach out to find out how you're doing, and at least attempt to do something that would make you feel at ease. But I mean, that's a limitation that we have. And so as much as I also love all my Aspie friends, what I could do, because I love them, is help them at least get to the point where I am, at least being able to know, like, hey, maybe try to find the people who reach out to me. Like, you could say to yourself, okay, these are the people who've been reaching out to me. Let me, even though it's not natural for me, to reach out to them and find out how they're doing. Let me check in with them and see how they're doing. And if they know to do that, then they may have more meaningful friendships, and that's what I wish for other Aspie people that we know.
One thing that was really educational that you shared with me, and it was really helpful in understanding when you say timeliness. So you gave me the analogy of, like, saying an Aspie person was asking a friend, hey, would you like to come over and help me get set up for my card game tonight? And the person said, oh, a family member died today, and the Aspie person is still, their brain hasn't like followed the whole thing, so they're still caught up in the game, and they're like, well, okay, but could you come over and help me? And then the person gets upset, and then later the Aspie person's like, oh my gosh, wait a minute, did they just say they had a family member die? And it's not that they didn't have empathy, they just hadn't caught up yet in that part of the
They
conversation.
haven't processed that.
Yeah.
So, and so the thing is also so be aware. Okay, so a time that's more likely to happen is when there's a lot of a stressful thing going on for the Aspie person. So the Aspie person is focused on this stressful thing. So when somebody else introduces something else, they're not open yet to a new topic, and so they shut out that other topic because they're just focused on that one thing. And like in the instance of setting up the game, so the person right then isn't very social normally, and it's very stressful because they haven't had a social event at their house ever, and it's going to be the first time they ever have it. So that's what they're focused on. And so when somebody says their family member died, they're so stressed out about this like the card game in your example, that they don't even think about anything else. And it's not that they don't care about the other person. It's just wait a second, did you just say that your I mean, and so a lot of the empathy is based on they don't necessarily pick up on the clues that the person, especially on the phone, you can't see the person's face. You don't know that the person is upset. You don't have that clue, and so some of the empathy is based on being able to do cognitive. Wait a sec. Instead of necessarily reading the person's face, as most people do, oh, she looks sad, I better ask her. They don't recognize that the person looks sad, and so they may have to look at cognitive clues. Oh, my grandmother just died. I'll bet that person is likely to be upset, so I should do something about that. So it's the recognizing isn't necessarily the same. The other person might have recognized immediately that they were upset by their facial expressions, and then the Aspie person may not notice that on their facial expressions. But then when they say that their family member died, the Aspie person may then be able to. So family member died. This person's probably upset. They probably and it's the empathy is based on a logical thing. I love this person, and this person's family member died. I'll bet they could use a hug or something. And so but then the second thing is that Aspie people need to learn to reach out to the people who reach out to them. I mean, okay, so for example. My daughter initially did not know how to make friends. Nobody told her how to. Now, I'm talking about the one specific daughter. I'm not going to name names, but okay. So, I think she only would know how to make friends if somebody taught her how to make friends. It was something that nobody's ever diagnosed this particular daughter of mine. But the point is that there are sometimes similarities between like people, even if they're not diagnosed or have enough characteristics to be on the spectrum. But like when I went to a parent-teacher night, there was a girl that said, "Oh, hi there," and then to my daughter, and I think my daughter was oblivious to, hey, that's somebody who wants to be your friend. I don't think she recognized that. And so this is an elementary school, so I had my wife say, hey, get her that little girl's mom's phone number, and then maybe they can arrange to get together because she seems to be reaching out. And so then now she had friends. That's all it took for my daughter to have friends. Now that they could arrange that, and so she enjoyed that, but she did not know how to make those friends.
Well, and that's something I think people overlook, because I have a daughter too who certain things were just not natural to her. So she had a baby, and the nurse had told her, wake the baby up every 4 hours to feed the baby to make sure the baby eats enough. Well, this was a brand new baby. So about a month later, I was watching the baby, and the baby slept through the night, and then I commented to my daughter, well, the baby's a great sleeper. She sleeps through the night. And she said, you can do that? And I said, well, yeah, what do you mean? And she said, well, I'm still waking her up. Nobody told me not to. So people don't realize or remember that sometimes people need to be told. It's not always intuitive to everyone. And so in this situation, kind of like with the Aspies, it may not be something that they don't want to do. It's just something that they didn't understand was something, just kind of a progression, and someone had to give them permission, and then they understand the norm. So, and I did realize that same daughter, as I started paying attention, I noticed she would watch what I would do and copy me. So she would learn the right thing to do. So that's a really valid point.
And then, okay, so one of the other Aspie friends of mine, I asked, well, how are you so successful with, I mean, it seems like you're very good with social situations, and her answer was that she watched other people and learned how to, like, hey, that little, she can even copy exact phrases people use, and hey, that worked pretty well, and so that is something about Asperger's in girls. Specifically, that's in the book by, give me a second, the famous Australian Atwood, Tony Atwood. He mentioned that the girls are often not diagnosed because they're very good at watching others and then copy and then do that, because they want to fit in like junior high, so they just learn to copy that. And of course, that's what this one Asperger's person said. Now, I'm going to say it's a huge disadvantage. It's not her fault. Somebody who was taken out of school and homeschooled, and I use that term loosely. I'm not sure how much homeschooling it was, or it was this person actually homeschooling her siblings. But the point is that it's not fair to expect this person to be good at those kind of social situations when they never had the opportunities. So, like, I would love to actually help that person with that. And of course, now we're talking about having this whole set of Aspie people come to my 4th of July thing. But anyway, I know we're getting.
But this is a really good topic for your podcast sometime. If you want to start working on a podcast for helping Aspie people, or just creating awareness for what Aspie people go through, this is a really relevant topic that a lot of people may not be aware of. It's an issue.
And I'm glad you impromptu took out your phone when we were having this topic. This wasn't a rehearsed thing. This is actually something that we were just talking about, and then of course you whipped out the phone and recorded it. So anyway, yeah. So okay. As long as we're on the topic, something else I've never mentioned before. This is kind of sad.
Do we want to record this?
Sure, we can mention this.
Okay.
So when I think back to when I was in high school, and there were probably two. There's definitely what I'm going to speak of. A couple people who, being on the autism spectrum, I didn't know I was on the autism spectrum. I just knew I was socially awkward, and a couple of times I dated socially awkward girls who were probably on the spectrum too. They weren't diagnosed. Nobody diagnosed, and so one of the things is that. When I was dating them, I was fairly good at fitting in by the end of high school. At the beginning of the high school, I didn't fit in at all. Didn't know how to connect with people. And part of it is that Aspies don't have the opportunity to have social situations, so we can never learn. So we're always socially elementary school, even when we're in junior high, and in like 6th grade or we're in 9th grade is how we react. We're behind. It's a developmental issue. So having opportunities of social situations, I got better at handling those situations. And I've mentioned this before about this guy in the wrestling team who reached out to me and, hey, you should learn how to work out or whatever. And he was very much a help. And so I was then much better at being social. I knew how to reach out to other nerdy kids, and then I could make them my friends. They were easier. Weirdly enough, the most popular girls in the senior class, even though I was a sophomore, I got to be friends with them through some weird thing that I happened to just help them with their accounting homework, because I sat at their accounting table with them in class. It gave me some street cred that I knew these people. It was all about who you knew in high school. Okay, there's a point to this. So anyway, I was I got flack from my classmates about why are you dating that like retarded girl? And it's like, I mean, she isn't really retarded, of course we know, because she's in school and she gets okay grades, but socially awkward, and she just seems like a deer in the headlight look in her eyes or whatever, and like that didn't bother me that somebody was socially awkward and whatever. That didn't, but yet I would be teased for dating a girl like that. Like, why am I dating this girl? And even though I actually liked the girl and I saw good things and qualities in that girl, and so I brought that up for the first time with somebody that I talked to about 10 minutes every year for the last 10 years. Is that right? 15 years, last 15 years, about 10 minutes every day, maybe every year. And I mentioned that to her because she's on the spectrum. I recognized right away. And she said that in her high school, how like the boys would tease each other. Oh, you like Rebecca, oh, and it's like that was a big tease. Like it would be like, oh, and they'd have to say, oh no, I don't like her. Anybody that would be anybody that would be at least a little bit nice to Rebecca. It's like, oh, you like Rebecca, because she was like like people use words like in my generation, spaz or whatever, and it was like the big insult, like, oh, you like Rebecca, and it's like, how awful would it be to be Rebecca, where anybody that showed you any kind of attention would be teased for doing such a thing? And I'm thinking back to all the other Aspie girls that I know, and how sad that would be. And one of the things that I remember too being okay, like in my freshman year, they had this thing where you give on Valentine's Day, you could give a carnation to anybody in your class. They gave a carnation to, and it's like, what was even worse about that is the flowers weren't ready for first period when they were supposed to give them out. So they had everybody go to their homeroom class at the end of the day to get your flower. And it's like, how embarrassing for anybody to go back to their homeroom. You go all the way back to their homeroom class to not get a flower. And it's like, I am not going to go waste my time going to my homeroom class to not get a flower. I mean, that's going to be embarrassing. Like, people, you get teased. You thought you were going to get a flower. What was weird about that was there were a few times if somebody said, hey, you got a flower, and it's like, this kid is just going to make fun of me. I'm going to go there and there won't be a flower. And after about maybe the third person said that, it's like, maybe somebody did get me a flower. And I went back, and sure enough, there were a pair of girls that bought me a flower. Now, the one thing is that like the girl and her friend, I mean, the one girl was like the most popular girl in my class. Now, I actually knew her from church, so I mean, it was nice that she did that. And it's sort of like, oh, you only got one flower, and then they saw who it was from, and I won't tease you anymore. I mean, unless she sent you a flower. But anyway, that was pretty cool. So I remembered that for the next year. So like, I went to school in Los Alamos, New Mexico. And of course, unlike regular cities in New Mexico, it's all, everybody's parents work at the lab, which is one of the most outrageous things is that everybody's father made a six-figure income. Everybody did. In fact, at the time, and maybe it's still true, that families in Los Alamos, New Mexico, have the highest per capita of families in the entire country. And the thing is, nobody was snobby because nobody had to be snobby. Everybody's dad made, good money. So that was the one thing that was odd about this. So then there would be like, there were like Native American people that were in New Mexico, and like there was a Native American girl who sat in front of me in my math class, and she was really smart. Kind of a big girl, but she didn't fit in because she wasn't white, and she wasn't, and so. But I would talk to her, and I was her friend or whatever, and then there would be like these like, obviously, if I think back, there were probably, really actually lesbian girls that were into sports and stuff, and they didn't actually ever hang out with guys, and so like but they were all people that I sort of knew. They were all acquaintances. They weren't just random people. They were people that I would talk to and stuff. And so the next year, I actually gave flowers to people who were acquaintance girls of mine that I wasn't dating them or anything, or they were just friends. But boy, did it make their life better, because it's like that would be the only flower that, I mean, everybody that I sent the flower to, that was the only one they got. And at least then on Valentine's Day, they weren't the girl who didn't get a flower at all. At least they sort of knew that they had at least a friend that made them at least not look embarrassingly unpopular. So so that did make a big impression with me. That I knew I could be in that way loving to my friends who weren't the most popular girls in school. At least they didn't have it was a huge popularity contest. Like the girl who gave me the flower that first year, she had like around, I think, 25 flowers.
Wow.
Okay, so and some girls had none, and so how would you feel if you were that girl who got none? So that's why I mean I probably sent like 6 flowers out, and for all those 6 girls, the only flower they got. And at least they went home on the bus that somebody gave them a flower. Anyway, I know I completely went off a tangent.
No, that's all right.
But the point being is that I think that, you know, learning how to reach out to the people who are at least giving us a little bit of attention, and then find out, like, they're giving me attention, okay? So I know that it's sometimes we're so used to nobody actually liking us, that sometimes when somebody is doing something nice, it's like, well, they won't really like me if they really knew me, but at least, but of course, if you never reach out to that person, you'll never find that person who really could really like you. And getting another example of one of my best friends is when I first was curious about Asperger's syndrome, because I was a teacher full time, and I had to learn about one of my students who had Asperger's syndrome. And when I had to read about it for the first time, it's like, oh my gosh, it totally sounds like me. But maybe if I actually met people with Asperger's syndrome, I could see how weird they were, and I'd know that it's not really me. But so I went to my very first Asperger support group that very week. And I saw, yeah, some people are really weird. Some people you'd never know. And then literally the person who I thought was the weirdest person, who was like sitting under a blanket in the corner, not even sitting at the table with everybody else. Everybody else was at least sitting at the table, at least trying to look like they were in a meeting, and she's just sitting in a corner like with this blanket over her and stuff. She became my best friend. I mean, and I absolutely love her. And so you can't judge a book by its cover. And she's actually quite an interesting person once you get to know her. And of course she'll be here on July 4th weekend also. So anyway, I guess that's all the things that I need to say right now. But anyway, try to be a friend to others. People are reaching out to you. If you're on the autism spectrum, at least if somebody's reaching out to you, at least try to show interest in them, and you might actually eventually really actually like that person, and it might be genuine, at least after you reach out to that person. You may find things that you really do actually appreciate about that person who's reaching out to you. Okay, all right.
Awesome.